even if we stopped the clock right now and, learned everything we could of the current state of AI, it's changing so rapidly. I think I heard a quote that it would take us 8 years as human civilization to even understand how to use it right now, not to mention how quickly it's changing. If you're not using it now as an organization, you're already behind.
Welcome to the Incremental Marketer, a content series where we meet with top marketing executives and leaders across industries to help you drive growth in your business.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Incremental Marketer. We're doing something a little different today. I'm not the one asking the questions. I'm the one answering. And joining me is Saad Abu-dagen, our sales and business development lead here at Slingwave. Saad's got a proven track record of helping businesses uncover their real pain points. Great background from Adobe, Marketo, and now at Slingwave, connecting them to these real solutions in market. He's got a background that spans tech, sales, and data-driven strategy. Welcome, Saad.
Thanks, Paul. Happy to be here. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to bombard you with some of these questions.
Great to have you here. These are questions that Saad and I get all the time from CMOs, growth leaders, brand teams, those people who are in the day-to-day work and trenches of marketing, everything from attribution and incrementality to what actually drives better media performance.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the conversations that we find ourselves having behind closed doors in pitch meetings, strategy sessions, at conferences. So we figured, why not share it with all of you and put it all on record?
Love it. First, tell us more about Saad Abu-dagen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started my career at Marketo. Like you mentioned, we were sub 200 employees. It was, the stereotypical startup. We were really wild west, very hands-on, very solutions focused, data driven. And I kind of grew up there. And I saw a lot of different clients, helped a lot of different marketers in healthcare to entertainment to sports to CPG to a medium business to enterprise customers that just had a massive tech environment. And they all needed one very similar thing, which is to figure out what was working, why it was working, and what they could do to improve it.
Yeah, so tell us about your day-to-day at Slingwave. What's your work with customers now?
So here at Slingwave, in the sales team, we focus on figuring out what our clients' issues are and how we can solve those issues. Most of the time, I'm getting very in-depth with our clients and understanding what really makes their days difficult. We want to make their lives easier and make sure that they're getting those promotions, they're getting those big wins because they're able to figure out exactly what their media mix should be and how to improve that, right?
All right. Well, I promised I'd shut up and let you ask me questions. So excited about that. Great to have you as the host.
We're going to be talking about the top 10 questions that we get from clients that are interested in Slingwave. Let's go ahead and jump into it. In your own words, can you describe what is the problem that we're solving for marketing departments?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think fundamentally, the big picture of what a CMO and a marketing department faces today, and really the whole organization, is how do I allocate budget to maximize my outcome? And it's that very top level question that an organization has that flows all the way down to specifics of channel and tactic and platform. But the fundamental problem that we see marketing departments really struggling with and trying to embrace new approaches and new instrumentation is that allocation decision. What do I do to maximize the outcome of this sometimes very substantial investment? It can be billions of dollars of marketing spend, and slight changes in how you allocate that will make a material difference in terms of your outcome. So I think that's the fundamental problem that we're solving for marketing departments. And then maybe, Saad, to your question, the subtext of that is also, how do I respond when scenarios change? Because you're not planning in a turn-based game where you go, then your competitor goes, then you go. Everyone's competing and moving at the same pace, right? And some are moving faster than you. So when scenarios change, how do I know what to do next? And that's competitors. It's also market dynamics. The market this year has been very volatile, as you've seen conditions change and tariffs and other elements affect companies' businesses. So you need to make on the fly decisions that are done in, days, if not hours sometimes, and you need to come up with a plan as these scenarios change. So you need those analytics to be keeping up with your business.
Right. And that's a constant, right? That's a continuous situation that happens in marketing daily, especially with, the emergence of AI and all these other technologies. All right, Paul, I'm keeping you in the hot seat. Here's question number 2.
Great.
How do you recommend marketing departments set up an advanced analytics function?
There's 3 pillars of this question, and I think it's really evolved, as you used to have fundamentally one pillar back in the days of digital only, and everything could be tracked. That used to be called multi-touch attribution. It still is called multi-touch attribution, but that fundamental muscle that organizations built over the last 20 years has really atrophied. It's essentially, you've got a very limited signal of what you used to be able to rely on, and it's last click, last touch. It doesn't show you the full picture. So how do we recommend a marketing department set up an advanced analytics function today? The 3 pillars are really a media mix model and a discipline around media mix modeling. So MMMs that approach the data as a time series problem, not cookie dependent, not thinking about it from a user level, but definitely taking the upper view of channels over time and their contribution. An MMM coupled with a real-time signal unified measurement apparatus at your company. So what that means, it's elements of that multi-touch attribution world, but it really just means getting the data to come in from as many signals as you can in real time so that the model can ingest it and that you can make decisions that are both long-term and over time aggregating of data, as well as what's happening right now. So you'll have pixel events and you'll have source of truth from your revenue platforms, whether it's Amazon Seller Central or Shopify or Salesforce. You're thinking about getting all of that data into your system essentially in real time, so you're not missing a beat of what's happening right now. So you got 1 MMM, 2 real-time signals, 3 experimentation. So how does your organization experiment and create a learning agenda throughout the year that help you validate assumptions that came out of the MMM, but are maybe not timely, or they're maybe too broad, not specific enough that you can act on. Experimentation helps you refine that. And this is things like match market tests, geo holdout tests. It's the same system of having a paired market, and you'll be able to see if you do a treatment in one market, the outcome is much different than the control market. So we really think that this kind of trifecta 3-pillar system is the way organizations should proceed moving forward. And there's even more pillars to be added as you grow and mature, things like surveys and other methodologies. But those are the core 3. And I think that's really our core recommendation as we speak with marketing leaders today.
And that being said, this is a really good transition to question number 3, right? What types of businesses benefit most from this type of approach?
Performance-driven businesses usually lead the charge in terms of the instrumentation and analytics around their media spend. And so you see a very substantial investment on those who have lower funnel, conversion-based, e-commerce subscription to consumer type products. So this can be, home goods in your large kind of outdoor entertainment, subscription-based models, e-commerce models. Anything that you can track in a short window is much more straightforward to be able to apply these types of analytics and attribution approaches. You'll start to see, I think, the businesses that are benefiting most from this type of approach are not just the performance businesses, but they're those full funnel businesses who are large marketers that have substantial budgets, multiple channels, lots of complexity in their model, multiple markets, multiple products. And that's the ideal place to employ an MMM That's the ideal place to add in these real-time signals, because it's much more complex than, it used to be if you're a single or handful of channel marketer. And you are probably spending a lot, so that, that budget that you spend can really go much further with proper analytics and instrumentation.
All right, here's another one. This is kind of a big one that we get often. What is the budget and data that you need for MMM?
Fundamentally, one statement I'll make is that MMM is becoming more and more affordable for any level of marketer, but there truly is a cut point where it makes a lot of sense for a marketer. And the larger the budget, the more levers you have to pull. So if you have $50K in monthly marketing spend, $50,000 on up, that's a good break point for I should be looking at these solutions and making sure that I have this plan in place at my company. And if you're $1 million budget, let's go to that example. You have a 3.5 return on ad spend, incrementally adjusted. That's aspirational for some companies, but let's say at $1 million, your budget is driving a 3.5 incremental ROAS, and you improve that by 10%, that return on ad spend, that's worth between $200K and an additional $1 million. So you are really moving the needle. It's a huge lever. And the more channels you have, the more complex your setup, the more you will benefit. Baseline, it started with 3 channels. Typically it's your Google, Meta, Amazon, or Google, Meta, TikTok, something around that combination. And then as you look back, you probably have 6 months of historical data to start with for the analysis. Now, 20 months or 24 months is usually ideal. That's 2 years of seasonality and changes as you fluctuate budget. But even a shorter run, 6 months of historicals can get you started as a marketer.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that question we get a lot, because MMM traditionally is a big project, or was a big project, but now, like you said, it's more accessible, right? But there's still these minimum requirements to really get the value out of it. And I think it's, that's super valuable for marketers to understand. So it's a great lead into the next question, right? Clients or customers typically ask, once we have a model in place, how soon can we expect to see results, right? Is there training or a burn-in period? What do you got to say about that, Paul?
Yeah, there is a bit of a training and a burn-in period, but timelines can vary, and it can get live a lot faster these days for most organizations than historically. So we would say for most optimizations, once you have a model that you feel confident in and you start making changes, you would start to be able to see those impacts in as little as 2 to 6 week time periods. So you'll be able to see change, optimization, and fundamental bottom line impacts. You may have a longer time hitting some of the strategies that are more upper funnel, right? Shifting media allocation to connected TV, shifting media allocation to prospecting from remarketing. You may see 90 days to a full year for some of those strategies to take impact. But ultimately, your model starts at the point that you start implementing changes and validating what they did. So we always tell our customers that it's not just a one and done. Don't do this once a year and then come back and revisit it. You should have an organization that looks at these results weekly, if not daily, and is learning and making that model and that process better. Because every data point that you gain as you act on a fundamental core model and core unified infrastructure will give you the chance to improve it going forward.
Exactly. So, that plays into the same idea that we kind of discussed earlier is you're playing the long game, right? You want to set yourself up for success now and in the future, which is why it's so important to get ahead of these things.
Absolutely.
Now, what percentage of marketing budget should be allocated to testing and experimentation? It's another question we get often. Would love to hear your opinion on that too, Paul.
There's some organizations that have a very substantial media budget set aside for experimentation. That would be 20% of your annual allocation. We recommend starting with about a 5 to 10% of your total media budget set aside for testing. And what what do you use that for? You use that for testing new channels. So that's, a toe in the water on a new emerging product format, connected TV, TikTok, if you haven't made that leap as an organization, Reddit, other fundamental channels. So we want you to set those aside and make sure that, you're testing it. It's our recommendation. You can go up to 10%. This just helps you prove ROI and help fine tune things as you, get a channel ready to then start to scale up. And you'll want to also heavy up channels and do the experimentation roadmap that we outlined. So it's essentially an experimentation plan or a learning agenda for the year, allows you to then test what happens when you increase budget on channels, what happens when you cut budget on channels. You actually see sales go down as you expect. So that 5 to 10% of your budget will allow you to make those tweaks intra year, and it will ultimately help you improve your model so that you usually get that budget back. First of all, the budget in and of itself will have a return. So it's not like you're throwing away 5 to 10% of your budget. There's an inherent return in that test budget. It also makes your model better so that you start to get that 10 to 50% improvement in media performance later on, and that can be ROI back to you. Another side note is some organizations may have such a large budget that it's single digit percentages, and that's quite a meaningful number for them to be able to test. But you just need the test to be material to what you need to do on your end. So it should be a representative test that you would then put in place in actual practice. And you need to test at the level of budget that would make a difference for your company. So some point there's certain tests that are too small that they're, as one of my friends, Tony Ralph, once said, it's interesting, not powerful. Like there's certain budgets that are so small, in the grand scheme of things, that the test will be interesting, but it won't be powerful to your company. You may get a read that could suggest a change, but if you're not actually going to act on it at a meaningful scale, it won't be worth it for your and your team's time. And testing takes time. It certainly is a commitment to an organization, and it can be disruptive to business as usual, essentially.
Those are great points, Paul. And it actually really feeds into this other notion of spend, right? A lot of companies come to us and they ask, well, what level of spend do I need to maximize Slingwave's tool in particular, right? Slingwave's MMM model, right? Like, I think it'd be interesting for you to share some of your opinions on that as well.
Great. And yeah, just speaking about our solution specifically, can tailor our tools to many different budgets. And the typical recommendation is a minimum annual media spend around 2 million. Now, there's scenarios where we've tested much lower than that, and then there's scenarios that are significantly higher than that. And so call it a sweet spot of 5 to 10 million is your starting point and media budget to fully capitalize on all three of those components. And side note, as we talk about what your organization needs, MMM, real-time attribution, and experimentation, our solution combines all of those. Not all solutions in market do that. So there's a little side sales pitch. One, we definitely see the ability to bring those tools together using AI and using the capabilities that are in market today from a compute standpoint is bringing the cost down to be able to serve even smaller and smaller budgets with a cost-effective starting point.
All right. Question number 8. This also has to do with cost and modeling. I think one of the things that we get asked a lot is, can I afford the tooling, right? Like how much should my organization budget for this type of thing?
There's, the mattress industry says replace your mattress once every 8 years. And you think that's a crock. It's just basically me trying to sell more mattresses. So I'm going to put this caveat there saying, we work in this business. We definitely believe that there's more budget should be going into this business, but it needs to make sense for your organization. Now, what I think is very industry standard of the best marketers is the rule of 1%. 1% of your total budget should be at least 1% should be going to measurement. Instrumentation, it's a massive lever. And if you look at the grand scheme of how your organization may be wasting 1% of budget on things that are unverified and fraud, or any of number of things that are underperforming, without proper instrumentation in place, those are getting missed and getting wasted for multi-year engagements. And so I think you want to put this in place, at least set aside 1%, if not 2% or more. And then you'll be able to see those significant ROI improvements. It's like it easily pays for itself. Internally, it's been understood that essentially this is paying for itself through the cost of media. And I just set aside a slight, component of the media budget to gain leaps and bounds in terms of the actual performance improvements. Not to mention the insights, which that informs strategy, right? The insights piece of what you do as an organization can lead to downstream changes that you make that allow you to stay ahead of the competition, and they're worth some significant quantifiable number in the long term for your business.
No, yeah, absolutely. In my experience, I've worked with marketing organizations that really didn't know what they were doing. Right. There's these different units, these different teams that sometimes are siloed, or just the team itself would go into meetings and would be asked questions on like, what's going on with this channel? Why isn't it performing correctly? And they just never really had an answer. 1% to get back 10% in the long run, it's sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how the math is not being done that way too. I think if you talk to certain industry luminaries, and we share this opinion, we think that there's a significant under-indexing around the proper fundamentals of measuring media versus other verticals where there's a huge SaaS industry built up around this, and tons of accountability in terms of how things are spent, much less in the media business. And so this is also an accountability software. And you were at the A&A procurement conference talking with, industry leaders the procurement side. It's like, this is the type of thing we hear. It's, I want my organization to be accountable to the way I spend media, similar to I'm accountable for all of the other budgets I have internally.
100%. And those conversations are more so now happening than ever before, especially with, how the market is tightening up a little bit.
Absolutely.
This leads me to question number 9. One of the things that we get questions about is the benefits of having a unified attribution model in the organization. Unifying these 3 different pillars. Let's hear more about that.
For sure. We see it every day when we work with our partners on this. This kind of methodology becomes the central rallying point for an organization to make decisions. You have multiple stakeholders internally. If everyone's looking at a different dashboard and different set of truth and of data and drawing their own opinions, you really rarely can get to consensus to move the needle as a team. Moreover, if you don't have a system built that's internalized at the company, it's only as good as that one person in your marketing analytics team and the stakeholder who works with them, until when they move on or they get promoted, they go to a different role. Everybody needs to retool, and there's too much fluidity if you don't have a documented and systematic process. So you could lose fundamentally years of learnings with one person departing the organization.
Right.
So get your team rallied around a unified attribution model. And our recommendation is that becomes your hub. And by the way, you can include agencies. You can include your agency partners, your media agency partners, your creative agency partners. You can include publishers as well as you buy. And, we all get that outreach from the sales team at give it a platform of choice, Google, Meta, Amazon. If you have a backing data point for what's working that you draw from your internal process, it very much helps you steer those conversations in the right direction. So yes, we'll spend more in these areas, or it's just not working. And, we can't go based on the platform metrics. We need to use our model to make these types of decisions.
All right, Paul. So we're at question number 10. We've saved the best for last.
Best
You
for
ready?
last. Ready.
All right. What excites you about the future of the world in which Slingwave operates?
It's
Like,
absolutely right now. It's agentic and AI capabilities. So we are seeing leaps and bounds changes in our ability to develop, our ability to deploy, and the insights that we can derive from a proprietary model. So I think what excites us and me about the future is the proprietary nature of a model. And it's really you as an organization, you have a proprietary model, define it however you can, and then wrap it in an agentic solution and use LLMs to be able to query it, give your organization distributed access to that tool, and let the organization do the work to find the insights and let the LLM surface that for you much more quickly than humans have in the past. I think that has implications for UI UX. SaaS companies of the past are largely going to be stuck in the mud or dead in the water without adapting, because you have this interface that used to be the most important tool in my toolkit. I can just use ChatGPT and query it as a single tool in the background. Why is that UI anything to me? I need to pull the insights out into the forefront of usability. And, there's a lot of form factors that could take. I think we're excited about, just being able to use chat functionality and natural language functionality. We're also excited about visualizations and other ways to push insights to an organization that are empowered by AI. And so I think we're just early stages. It's going to be an exciting run.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see what happens. Hopefully it's got to be. It's going to be largely positive experience, I think, especially the way that it's being developed now from what I've seen.
Yeah, we were at the ANA AI and Media Tech conference in Austin earlier this year. I loved the conversations that were happening on stage, and you could tell it was really the organizations are just craving this understanding of how they can adopt the technology. We need change teams within every organization that are just tasked at using agentic capabilities every day and LLM, based workflows. It's essentially, if you don't, you're not going to be keeping up. And by the way, even if we stop the clock right now and, learned everything we could of the current state of AI, it's changing so rapidly. I think I heard a quote that it would take us 8 years as human civilization to even understand how to use it right now, not to mention how quickly it's changing. If you're not using it now as an organization, you're already behind. Hey, Saad, thank you for being on the Incremental Marketer podcast, sharing your insights, sharing the 10 top questions that we get from customers. It was great having you here.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Super excited about the future.
All right. Thanks for watching the Incremental Marketer podcast.
If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the podcast. And stay tuned for more conversations with the minds shaping the future of marketing and innovation. Until next time.